The train screeched to a halt in the dusty town of Clearwater, its whistle echoing through the stillness of the early morning. Eleanor Hayes, wrapped in a worn but clean wool shawl, stepped down from the last car, her boots crunching on gravel as she scanned the horizon. She clutched a weathered letter in her gloved hand, the last piece of correspondence from Thomas Whitaker, a war-scarred carpenter who had sent for her as a mail-order bride. What he didn't know, what no one knew, was that Eleanor wasn't the destitute widow she claimed to be. She was, in fact, heiress to a considerable fortune she'd never asked for and never wanted. She had come not in search of comfort, but of meaning. She expected a small ranch or a cabin tucked near a grove. But when the stationmaster hesitantly pointed toward a blackened field a mile out, where smoke still curled from the charred remains of a home, her heart dropped. "Lightning storm last week," he said grimly. "Everything gone. He's been sleeping in the barn." Eleanor walked the rest of the way, her suitcase heavy, not with riches, but with hope. When she arrived, she saw him, tall, broad-shouldered, his left sleeve neatly pinned where his arm used to be. He was kneeling near the ruins, gently sifting through ashes, pulling out bent nails and setting aside salvaged boards. He looked up as she approached, a mixture of shame and sorrow shadowing his weathered face. "Miss Hayes," he said, removing his hat. "I'm sorry you came all this way. I was going to write, tell you not to bother. I don't have a roof to offer you anymore." Eleanor looked past the smoldering wreckage and saw the barn, half standing and in need of care, but still shelter. She smiled, a soft, unwavering smile. "I didn't come for the roof," she said. "I came for the man beneath it." Thomas blinked, his voice catching. "But you don't know what you're getting into. I've got nothing but my tools, and even those barely survived." Eleanor stepped forward and placed her gloved hand on his chest. "Then we'll build something from nothing. Together." In the days that followed, the two began rebuilding the homestead from scratch. Thomas, despite having only one arm, worked tirelessly, sawing, hammering, and sketching blueprints in the dirt with a stick. Eleanor cooked meals over an open flame, cleaned debris, and even helped haul timber from the nearby woods. Each night, they sat by a makeshift fire, sharing stories under the stars. Slowly, affection began to replace formality. One evening, after rain drenched the valley and soaked the barn roof, Eleanor fell ill. Thomas cared for her fevered body with trembling hands, wiping her brow and murmuring prayers. When she finally stirred, she found him asleep beside her on a wooden crate, exhaustion lining every inch of his face. She reached into her suitcase that night, pulling out the sealed envelope that had lain untouched for months. Inside was a letter from her late uncle's attorney, detailing her inheritance, over $500,000 in land, stocks, and cash. She had run from it, fearing the gold would attract the wrong kind of love. But now, with Thomas's rough hands and honest eyes in her heart, she knew what to do. The next morning, over hot tea and a sunrise brushing the hills, she laid the envelope on the table. "Thomas," she said softly, "I have something to tell you." She explained everything, who she really was, what she really had. She watched his face closely, fearing disappointment or rejection. But Thomas didn't say a word at first. He simply reached across the table, took her hand in his, and smiled a quiet, humble smile. "So that's why your boots looked too fine for prairie dust," he said with a wink. Eleanor laughed, the first real laugh since her mother died. "You're not angry?" "I loved you before I knew you were rich," he replied. "I loved you when you picked nails out of the ashes with me." With the money, they didn't buy a mansion or move to the city. Instead, they rebuilt the homestead, stronger, warmer, filled with light. They built extra rooms for orphans displaced by the fire, and offered meals to passing strangers. Eleanor started a school for local children, and Thomas hired apprentices, men broken by war or by life, giving them dignity and work. Their love became more than just a bond, it became a beacon. Years later, when asked how a one-armed carpenter and a runaway heiress built such a remarkable life, Eleanor would smile and say, he had one hand, and I had the other. Together, we had enough. And if you ever passed through Clearwater and stopped at the big house on the hill with its red shutters and garden blooming even in the dry months, you might be greeted by the sight of Thomas and Eleanor, rocking side by side on the porch, fingers still laced together after all the storms. In a world full of ash and loss, they had built a home not with riches, but with resilience, love, and the quiet courage to start again. And that, truly, was the most beautiful fortune of all.